Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 101. Tonight, I have special guest, Jenn Milius, on Manifesting with Meg, Conversations with Extraordinary People. We are going to be talking about sweet inspiration in September. Today, the theme of our episode is Understand with an Open Mind. And remember, this is about transformation, dreams, inspiration, true happiness, and discovering your bliss. Without further ado, we are on our way, and here we go. Let me introduce you, first of all, to Jenn. She is an entrepreneur, developmental editor, coach, and accomplished author, having published 7 children's titles in the Einstein and Moo series, and most recently co-authored You Know It's a Verb, Right?, which blends personal development, business, and leadership tenants. So already, you know, this woman is incredibly accomplished, and my God, people only write one book, and this, oh my gosh, you've written so many already, and I can't wait to talk about all of that. But I want to tell you more about her wonderful past career. She was 20 years a corporate career, undergraduate communications degree, an MBA to help. She was 20 years in a corporate career, but she has all of this knowledge with regard to her education. MBA, she basically helps writers now and aspiring authors get out of their own way and leave a legacy by telling their stories and confidently sharing them with others, which is something that I am passionate about learning. For sure, she's going to be certainly a wonderful teacher. And welcome, Leslie. She says, Leslie Rasmussen here saying hello. But it gets better because not only does she have a wealth of knowledge from her illustrious career, she also is basically the host of this incredible show, the TufFish Show. It features authors from different genres and businesses, but with one thing in common. They had a message or story they wanted to tell and courageously got out of their own way and made it happen, which I was so blessed to be on her show. I was telling her beforehand, it was one of my favorites. So certainly after this show, I'm going to have to put that up again. It was a lot of fun, and she definitely is amazing conversationalist, and I knew I had to have her on my show here tonight. This is one of my favorite things. She believes that each of us have something special to offer, but sometimes it just takes a leap of faith to be willing to share that gift. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I love about people who certainly nudge others along their journey is that wonderful gift of inspiration. And certainly that comes with Jenn. So without further ado, she is literally going to be here tonight, tapping into all of our full potential regarding joy, purpose, and possibility coming together through all of us. And I can't wait to have the conversation. So before we get into a conversation with you, everybody get ready to get intentional, set your intention for the evening. And at the end, we'll all hear about that and then pick the magical guide to bliss number, so that when we, at the end of the day, we'll all leave with a bit of synchronicity and wonder as well. Jenn, how are you tonight?
Meg, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, I have to thank Leslie, certainly, because she's the one who connected us at the outset. And I really, like I said, I really loved having the conversation with you. You definitely are someone who really engages and brings out certain wonderful anecdotes, and like I said, that leap of faith, that push, that joy, that purpose, all of it's there. So I always encourage everyone to go check out the TufFish Show, because it really is one that you're going to learn a lot from. Did I miss anything?
No, but I so loved our conversation on TufFish, and Leslie was also a guest, and that our conversation there was also just as wonderful. So yes, I love the conversations.
Yes. And one of the things that I love to do is that I get to share extraordinary people, their insights with others. And I love the fact that this is the theme we're using today. And the quote that comes with it is just one of my favorites. All is love. With love comes understanding. With understanding comes patience. And then time stops and everything is now. Brian Weiss. And he's one of my favorites, author of Many Lives, Many Masters. And, you know, I come at this with a very interesting approach today, because I did a lot of introspection this morning. And I think that, you know, one of the things that came up, and I think it's perfect for tonight, is that, you know, if you realize that everything comes from a place of love, you get incredible awareness as to what really empowers us further on our journey, and that passion, and that what to have as far as what you love to do, what you love just how do you love to speak, what you love to be a part of, all of the above. And, I think when you see through the eyes of love, the world changes, the world that you see changes. And then the way you take in information and knowledge expands. And certainly after that, anything, the sky is the limit. And I think the way we experience other people, in fact, transforms, because from that love consciousness, we're seeing everything that we're receiving as something with, beauty and certainly an offering that could help us on our own path, and vice versa. You give that karmic wonderful give and take. And the magical key to bliss tonight is love everything in the now. And I think that really is important too, because if you do that, you kind of focus on the present moment, which is, always something, because, all the time we're being like, pulled here, there, future, back, and past, all these wonderful things. So tell me, what are your thoughts on this? And I like I said, I get very, very synchronistic, because it always falls on the right time, the right day, and the right interview, and the right person. So go for it. Tell me what you think about that.
Okay, I love the fact that you just said that they all kind of like flow together in that way, where it's so synchronistic.
Yes.
And to your point about being present, that's something that I think is really important when you're engaging with someone else. Like to your point about being on a podcast, being right there and being present in that conversation, because you learn so much from that other person. And by doing so, you give them permission to let their little light shine, so to speak. And in doing so, you're letting your light shine, because you're showing up as you. And when you're both present in that space, there's so much joy and love that can come through that. And that permeates through things too, because when you're pursuing that kind of goodness, there are times when you need to let go of things that are no longer serving. They served at one point, but then they've reached a point where you need to part ways or do something different, and that's okay, or because it was maybe for a season, and that allows you to have more opportunity, more expansion, really.
I love that you say that. And I know you have the TufFish Show, and how many episodes do you have now under your belt with that?
Oh my goodness. Well, I do know that the 100th episode will be in November, so I'm getting really close.
That's exciting. That's so exciting. That is so exciting. As you know, mine was obviously last week, and the 100th episode. The thing we learned most from that is, like, I'm such a type A control personality that, I want to make sure everything goes my way and everything's done a certain way. And then when things go off the rails, which, it has a tendency to do sometimes with all of this wonderful, what's happening behind the ghost in the machine, what they're doing, what's going on back there, you're sitting there like you're wondering, oh my God, did I do something wrong? What happened? I didn't, this, that, and the other. And then at the end of the day, you're just like, okay, I guess this is the way it was meant to unfold. And away we go. So you're coming up in November with your 100th episode. Congratulations. And I love this beautiful logo you have. And I wanted to point it out. Where did your origin story, like, first of all, I'd love to know what this symbolizes. I mean, TufFish, sure, but what meaning does it have for you?
Okay, well, the story about TufFish actually is because so early in my business, when I left the corporate career to start my business, I started out with children's books, and then it evolved to speaking, and then it evolved to coaching, then the leadership book, and so on. And during this time, I became really good friends with a fellow author and initially became a beta reader. Now, I did not know what a beta reader was at that time, but I had been the editor for my papers in school for everybody else. In my master's program, we had cohort papers where you had 5 people turn in one paper, one grade, one voice. And the rest of my cohort was like, I can't blend all of that. I'm like, I can handle that. Just give it to me. So it was always a part of things that I would do. Even in the corporate world, I would read over things and go, we need to modify this, or this doesn't communicate the message.
So explain what a beta reader is, just so for people.
Yeah. So a beta reader.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So a beta reader is someone who is reading the book to give feedback. They're giving feedback that's really more along the lines of, hey, this is great, or hey, this needs more work, or hey, I'm confused here, or maybe I'm a little bored and we need to pick up the pace. So they're offering feedback, but they're not really trying to solve the problem with the writer as much as just giving feedback like a really engaged reader would.
Yeah.
Well, when I started doing this for my friend, I ended up being a little bit more of a developmental content editor, coming in saying, hey, what about this? Can we re-rack this a little bit more? Or this character needs a little bit more of this. And then it turned into, well, I don't really want to be called a beta. That doesn't sound fun. How about a beta fish? Fish are fun. I can be a fish. Fish need food. I need food. Give me more chapters to read. So then it just became a running joke between the two of us. And at one point, after working through some of the chapters, she was like, you're really one tough fish. And it just stuck. So
Awesome. I love that. That's a great story. I absolutely love that. So you went from a corporate career to writing children's books, or were you a beta reader before you started writing children's books?
Oh, no, I wrote the children's books and then did the beta reading, but didn't realize that that's what the term was. I was reading from the context of, hey, you've asked me to offer feedback to help really strengthen where you're going. So I did what I would have done with anyone asking me in that way. And she's like, you're really more of a content developmental editor, but this is good. So can we work together on these other projects? And it's just, she's amazing.
I love that. So then it became TufFish. What was that? How much later did you start your podcast then?
Honestly, not that. The joke happened way earlier on, and then I've embraced the editing into my business. But the TufFish Show came into play because I just really loved conversations with other authors and other people who they had something they wanted to say. They courageously got out of their own way and were willing to do it by writing and publishing a book. And I just wanted to have those conversations and just get to know them and hear about their stories and hear about their craft and their process, because without them, there wouldn't be those books. So it turned into following your curiosity and following your passion.
Oh, I love that. And you certainly, that's really what you've done, is bringing out a lot of different authors and a lot of different content. So like every interview that you've done, if you watch all of her clips on her page, her webpage, it all brings out something, but you're very focused as far as titling it. You're very clear with what it is that you're looking for. And I'd love to go back to with like the titles, understand with an open mind. You know, I always wonder, you know, if the genius happens or we just happen upon the genius, right? It's always kind of like, did I fall on this? Or did this something, you know, like boom, the idea, and you're like, I have to do this. How did that work for you with your whole career now? Because you are an author of children's books. You have written this book that you just came out with. It's called, I'm sorry, you know, it's a verb, right? I love that. I love, the good title, very cheeky title, but very good title. But how did this happen? Like, how did you fall? Did you fall on it, or did it come like, did it, you know, you just grabbed onto it and then ran with it?
Well, I was the kid who, if you said, do a paper or do a standardized test, oh, I'll do your paper any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And even if you give me a really tight deadline, I tended to work really well to that deadline. So it didn't faze me. I would prefer the paper. And I was the kid in college who'd have the dictionary open to say, that looks like a good word to fit into my paper. And I have no idea where it's going to go quite yet, but I'm just going to plop it in here because this looks like fun. And so, but I was always enjoying some kind of writing. Sometimes it was cathartic. Sometimes it was showing up in how to shine a light on someone else. And I've always been someone who could hear different pieces and synthesize them and bring them together to then say, this is what I'm deducing, or this is what I've seen where we can go with this, or seeing that within someone's skill sets too. So prior to actually honing my business more with the writing and the podcasting and editing, I would also help with resumes, but not necessarily, I would not write the resume, but rather kind of act as like an HR filter and say, this is what I'm seeing. Is this what you mean? Or these are all the transferable skills that I'm seeing that you're not calling out. Let's pull them out. This is what you're bringing to the table. This is what you have. Own that. Let your light shine. Have the experience and show what you've done.
That's amazing. And I love the fact that, you are a very inspirational person and you have such a foundation too, but you are inspired by a lot of things. And I love the fact when I ask this part of the show, what is inspired or what is inspiring to you? And I love the wonderful quotes that people bring to the floor because, I think that, we and I will say this, so like one of my favorite authors in the world is Mary Oliver, and she wrote, the wonderful Living a Conscious Life, pay attention, be astonished, tell all about it. And for such a long time, that's been ingrained in my process. So when I see the quotes of other people, it brings more light into the person that you are. It's ingrained in your process. And the first one we have here today is from Janet Fitch. You've got to let go of who you were to become who you're meant to be. Please tell me that. How is that ingrained in your plan? And why is this inspiring? I mean, it is definitely inspiring, but yes, for you on your journey, on your path, because I think that's very indicative of the actual visual that we have is those footprints, and they're moving somewhere. And tell me more about this.
I believe that it really takes courage and confidence to remember who you are, to let that light shine and to let other people see it. And that might mean you need to let go of things, maybe that that idea of saying, well, who's going to listen? Or that imposter syndrome that comes through and saying, no, 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 I've got this. The right people are going to resonate. The right people will come. And that's letting go of the fear of judgment or the fear of playing small or allowing yourself to play small.
Beautiful.
So all of those are really about, it's really about moving towards something that feels like your next level.
Yeah.
It's about embracing who you are to be able to do that.
And go back to the visual. It's like these shoes are sturdy shoes. These are solid shoes, and you're walking in something that's not so sturdy. There's significant footprints that are happening here. I'm curious as to why this visual spoke to you because I get so many different. I just love the psychology behind the person, that extraordinary person at that. What was it about this that for you was important?
What I loved about the image was, to your point, that this person's walking in sand, and sand isn't necessarily an easy thing to walk in at times. And they're finding a way forward. They're taking one step at a time. It's not something that is necessarily going to go fast or slow. It's going at the pace it's supposed to. And at some point, you'll be able to look back and see how far you have come. But you have to keep going, and that you have to, sometimes when you're working on something and you reach a point, you might feel like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking to do this? And it's scary. And, oh my gosh, are you kidding that I've just put myself out there? And that's the point where it might be easy to say, I think I'll retreat. I think I'll go back. Instead, that's actually the best point to say, no, I need to keep going. I didn't come this far to stay here. I'm moving towards something that is more aligned for me, that lights me up. I'm moving towards joy, to experience more of that joy now. So to me, that's where that image was speaking to me.
And it's so important. And I think a lot of people maybe right now, we're like on the last quarter of 2022. I know it's funny because it's such a temporal process. Like I work in months, I plan out in months. And, maybe the year started off a certain way and it didn't necessarily, is not where we are right now is still the same, but we're still in it. And I love that you are saying you have to let go of who you were. And I think sometimes, it's kind of like that, the weight of the world that you're still taking with you, and this is incredible how it speaks to me because, sometimes the things that we take with us aren't ours to carry any longer. And I love that and it's just so powerful. I'm not surprised. It's you, and I know you. So this is not surprising that you would bring something like that out for us. And here we have another one is by Sally Hogshead. The goal is not to change who you are, but to become more of who you are best. I'm sorry, who you are at your best, which is another like added layer to what we just spoke about. Tell me about this.
I love how Sally Hogshead, she has a book called Fascinate, and it's really about it's kind of understanding branding, but it's understanding branding about what you are bringing. And when you understand what you're bringing to the table and how you own that, then you start showing up with more confidence because you're trusting who you are.
Right.
And the goal is to become who you are at your best, meaning that everybody has certain skill sets. If we were all the same, that'd be really boring. If we were all the exact same thing, that really would be dull. So each one of us, because we have something different, that's actually something to be excited about and to embrace and to, again, let that light shine. And you do that when you are owning your space a little bit more, like you're willing to be seen.
I love that. You know, it's, to me, like for who you are at your best is probably where you're happiest too, is like, why wouldn't you want to play from that space, right? Why wouldn't you want to move from that mentality? Because that's where we feel the most alive and authentically ourselves. I love that you're saying that for sure and shining from that. And then this is you. Embrace your strengths and talents rather than minimize or hide them. You are meant to shine. Perfect. You've used the word shine 3 times. Clearly, it's an important word to you. Tell us a little bit more. How is this inspiring? This is your words. My God.
Well, I will tell you that as a kid, I was the kid in the children's choir during our performance of This Little Light of Mine, finger up, rocking it like there was no tomorrow. And all the other little kids were probably just up there standing like, this is how we're singing this song. And I'm up there wiggling it, my finger, my body, we're shaking it. I'm 4, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. But I really believed in that spirit of owning you. And there are so many times where you can run into something where you might question like, oh, was this the right thing? Or, oh, am I the right fit for that? Or when you get things that bump up against you and challenge you, it might be hard to remember, hey, wait a minute, your gifts were given to you because you are the right person to share them. There's nobody else quite like you.
Why is it so hard for us to understand that, Jen? It's like so interesting. It's like we're always trying to figure out what's going to be the sweet spot so everyone will give us the time of day or we'll get the job we thought we wanted and this, that, and the other. Why? Like, I always imagine that quote that always comes up, do what you love and then it'll never work a day in your life. And I get that. Work is necessary. We all want to like get out in the world and do our work. But it's a different sentiment with regard to our work rather than work. And then back to what you're saying, like you shaking it at 4 years old. I am sure if we caught you, I don't know, maybe you still, shaking it at, I don't know how old you are, but like even to this day, I don't see you being anything but that. If that's who you were then, it's the most true. Don't change who you are because you're molding yourself to be engaged or to accepted by other people. I don't know, I go back to the point that you're making is that you're meant to shine. How do you shake people into that? Like, how do you shake people into stop trying to imitate someone who is not you? Why aren't you being you,
Well, I will tell you when I'm working with my writers and maybe they're at a point where they're like, who's going to read this book? What was I thinking to do this? Oh my gosh, what I've written is junk. This is what is going on. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
First off, you were given that story because you are the right person.
Yeah.
Now, you might need to go back and work another draft and try another pass at it for it to refine, for it to be polished.
Yeah.
But you can do that. But it doesn't mean that it's easy. It just means it's more meaningful and it will be easier the more you keep showing up. It's not necessarily something you go, hey, this is easy, because there are times when it's a little bit like, oh my gosh, this is nerve-wracking. I remember back in my corporate days, I was a consultant for a publishing company, and I remember going to speak in front of my sales team, and I was nervous. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is the first time I'm having to do this. And I remember taking a deep breath, and I talked to all of them individually, one-on-one, so many times, but this was the first presentation.
Wow.
And one of them pulled me aside. She's like, Jen, remember, this group is a group that's excited about hearing what you're saying, because each one of us has worked with you and we trust you. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm the only one in my own head right now. They're not sitting there going, oh, who does she think? No, I was the one sitting there doing that. And when I realized, no, trust, if you don't know the answer, say you don't know. But my job was to be there to be of service. And when I focused on serving, when I focused on others and being of service, that shifted, and it took the stress away in that way. And it was focusing on just, this is what I came to do. I'm being of service in this space. If you have questions, tell me, and I will be glad to help get those answers, because I want you to be successful. Yeah. And when that was the focus, the rest kind of fell into place.
You know, and Lee is saying it took me years to find the courage to show up as myself. And I think that, yeah, but now that you have, and now that you are, the rest of your life is going to be like you, the superstar. And you know, one of the things I love, and I will, to your point, Jen, is like, well, I always say, well, I'm here, and there's got to be a reason why I'm here, you know, or in this space, or speaking to you today, you know. I kind of want to get curious, find out what that is, and like what magical, you know, secret or clue or hint in my life that I'm going to get, and then walk into that. So with regard to you, and they're saying trust, you know, there's some people that you're just with and you're just like, oh, I trust you. You're not going to let me down. And that's the person who you are, because that 4-year-old was sitting there and you're taking it. And you know what? You're just like, okay, that if you got the, you know, whatever to do that, you know, the guts, the courage to show up, then you are on to something, because that's joy right there. That's joy. That is joy with the finger shaking and everything, right? And then we have here Stephen Pressfield. Don't cheat the world of your contribution. Give it what you've got. And boom. Yeah. Lee is saying it's so hard to get out of our own heads, for sure. But, you know, I love, don't cheat the world, you know, from the gifts that you have to share. And tell me, what about you? What do you think about this? This is great. I love it.
The reason that this one speaks to me so is because, you know, he's talking about resistance. He's talking about what, at first you can read it in the context of a writer. A writer can bump up against resistance, like, who am I to write this book? Yeah. Oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this next round type of thing. But the other side is that it can show up as a business owner of, who do I think I am to be running this? Or, oh my gosh, you know, maybe what I've created is just enough. And it's like, no, have you really put yourself out there as much as you thought you have? Is there something else you could do to play a little bit bigger than you have been? Can you take some more steps to really move to that next level? So yeah, exactly, Leslie. This quote is really speaking to resistance and imposter syndrome to me in all different ways. And remembering that it's kind of like Dorothy and having the ruby slippers all along, that she had them all along. Yeah. It's just, you have to remember it and tap into it.
Okay. So 2 things that come up for me when you're talking, and look at, you're just like beaming joy over there. And I'm just like, you know, I'm always kind of looking for my circle, right? The people who are in my tribe. And it's like this Fab Five tribe, or this wonderful, you know, people who teach me so much, that, you know, give me the courage to say, maybe they're onto something, and maybe they see something in me that I can't see myself. It's kind of like the butterfly doesn't see their wings, you know, before, you know, they start to fly, and they don't ever see themselves until they look down. Their vision or view of the world starts to change. You're the kind of person who will shine a light on another person so that they can shine and rise with you. And for some, you know, the imposter syndrome, you've spoken to that, and you work with a lot of authors, and you help them get past that. How did you ever have that? Is that ever been a part of your
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, like, when did it snap for you, and you're just like, oh yeah, no more, no, I'm done with that. But yeah.
I mean, it's shown up in my corporate career, just like it. I mean, that was imposter syndrome when I first thought, oh my gosh, who am I to speak to these, you know, my sales team? And they're like, Jen, you've been talking to us all along. It's all good type of thing. it happened in a speaking engagement that I was first told, oh, you need to go do this presentation. Thinking, oh, I thought my bosses were giving this presentation. It's mine. Okay. And then I had to remember, you're the subject matter expert. You can do this. Trust yourself. You can do this.
Yeah.
So there are so many situations where it would show up in my corporate career. And then when I wrote my first stories, they showed up through that too. And it wasn't necessarily always with the writing, sometimes as much as it's, okay, well, now what? Or a lot of times if you are pitching or saying, hey, do you think this might be an opportunity? You reach out to somebody else. Would you like that? Can we potentially do this opportunity? And they don't all work out. Not every single one will pan out. So when you're gracious about the closed doors and say, thank you for letting me know, it's because it's information that you now have. So, okay, thank you for letting me know. That's okay, because that just moves you closer to where it is. So, and I'll tell you, when my co-author and I were pitching our book, it's a verb right, there were times when we seemed to get like back-to-back rejection letters from agents. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, how do I snap out of this? And so all of a sudden, I sent my co-author, when the next one came along, I sent him an email that started with dun, dun, dun. Another one bites the dust. And so I was like singing in the video, singing it to him. And he was like, are you telling me this is going to happen each time? Like, probably will, because that's how I shifted it, recognizing it's okay. Thank you for telling me no. It's okay. It wasn't a right fit. The right fit will come. And
love that.
That's awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah. And the bot, and I love that you're saying that, because I think a lot of people are like, and I always, it's like, I tell my kids all the time, you don't want to peak in high school. And if you fail a few times, you probably want to do that a lot in high school. It's like, or like even early on in life. So at least when it happens to you as an adult, which it always will, then you'll know how to deal with it. And like Leslie's saying, great attitude, because the bottom line is that we're not, that. And I loved how, not just a great attitude, but your perspective is amazing, because not only do you say, okay, they didn't want it, but something better is going to come along. So that's really important too, is to shift and say like, because sometimes we sit in our misery, the misery, whatever you want to call it. You're just like want to cry and stomp your feet and whatever. But I think it comes back down to your perspective, which I love, because, okay, go and have your tears, go deal with that, and then come back again. Let's go. And I love Dan Zadra's quote, we all have many gifts that were never opened. It's time to open some of yours and find your wings. Okay, first of all, the wing thing got me, but the rest of it, I love it. And tell me what this means to you. How is this inspiring to you?
Because it's a reminder that when you're giving gifts, if you think about all the different talents that you have, even if you think other people have them too, let's just focus on the gifts that you have. And when you say, okay, I have these particular skill sets, these particular talents, have I used them all? Have I put them all to the best capability that I can? Can I combine them a little differently? Have I tried something else? Or have I pushed out of a comfort zone and said, I don't know that I would have done that before, but I'm glad I did it now. Yeah. Or that kind of thing, where you want to be willing to try, be willing to push out of a comfort zone. So if you think that if you visualize little boxes that you have of your skill sets and your talents, don't leave any of them wrapped up. Open each one, find a way to say, okay, how might I use this? How might this be a part of it? And so instead of looking at it as a limitation, look at it as, how might I try this?
But it's like when you have a toy, like, unwrap your gift. It's like a new toy. You want to play with it. You want to get like, what am I going to do with this? What can I do? Shake it, whatever. And the fact is, if you leave it in the box, and I always laugh because people who collect things, they're like holding it so they'll be valuable one day. And I'm like, but isn't that the toy you always wanted? Isn't that the one you want to play with? Like, okay. And you're just going to leave it there? It's kind of like the china you get for your wedding, right? Or if you're not married, like whatever you get, the gifts you get, right? And you wait till that day comes that you put them down and you use them. And it's like, well, why? And like, they're there for a reason. Take them out and play with them and have, and, eat on them, enjoy what comes with the beauty of this, that comes with that. And, your book, thank goodness, has come out. I mean, I love the fact that you were published as a children's author initially, Einstein and Boo. I think that's so perfect, especially since you told us a story about you dancing at 4 years old. I think that's wonderful that you would start your career writing that way. But you also, wrote a book. It came out, it's a verb, right? Demonstrating how leadership and becoming leadership must become a verb and positively develop individuals across the leadership spectrum who believe there is more to leadership than meets the eye. What an important book that we need to read, at least in the higher echelons of the even corporate or even anything for that matter. Anytime we have a leader who steps up, I support young innovative leaders who are making a difference in the world. Even with regard to them, the way we learn how to lead changes who we lead, and it maybe empowers them to show up and lead differently. And that's what's going to happen as far as the ripple effect that goes beyond. Tell me, okay, first of all, surprise, you got it published. How was that? How did that come to fruition? No more Another One Bites the Dust, but what did you play? Was there another song that was like, ooh, Celebrate Good Times by, Kool and the Gang? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, that is an awesome song. So it probably would have been a song on that, but it was just more of a, oh my gosh, we did this. We did this. Now we have to keep going because it's that next step. And it's one of those things where, each time something cool happens in your life, whatever that is, and you've achieved something, whatever that is, no matter if you think it's big or small, that next level opens up. And then that's where that resistance or that imposter syndrome might want to show back up going, oh, so we're here. So when that new book started its process, Wayne and I just we just kept doing what we had been because we're friends and it just really worked. And so we made sure we kept our communication open. We kept our communication clear. We were all, hey, let's make sure we're talking about this. Let's make sure we're on the same page. And there was joy. Working together on our book. It was just, there was always laughter.
You were a single author with the children's books, correct? You weren't on your own. You did that. You published them as a single author. And then this was the first collaboration as you had with another writer. Oh, wow. Well, how was that different? I'm sure it's different. You were working with another person, but the process of different genres too, for that matter. But like, how was it different as far as your, how you said you learn a lot about yourself? What did you learn about yourself in that process writing with Wayne?
Oh, that's an awesome question. So with the process itself, what we did was brainstorm what we thought might go in this book. We kind of did a Pomodoro idea where you sit there with, like you said, a timer, it's like 20 seconds, and you write all these stickies out of what you think, then you try it again, just to brain dump and get it going. So we did that, and then we worked through those and started coming up with what we thought might be in this book. And then we started getting clear who we wanted for the reader, who we wanted to talk to, and adjusted from there. But we didn't write the book in order. We basically said, I feel like writing chapter 20 today. Great. I feel like writing chapter 4. Wonderful. So we would write what we felt and then would swap and then would go back and forth that way. And then once everybody had a draft, then we went and figured out now how do we need to really build this in the right story arc? And then went back through again to edit, because now everything is all different, but we also wanted to make sure it flowed. And so all of that was just such a great experience. And what I learned was, quite honestly, Wayne helped me to see in some ways where I didn't always see how, like, the growth or the leadership that I had within a certain space or what have you. I would have seen, oh, I was just showing up and helping. No, this is what you were doing with this. And I'm like, well, thank you, because those conversations helped me to see, okay, well, this is how I can better communicate what I'm contributing, because I have had another way to look at it, really.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And, Lee is saying also to the other was a great point that we put your most valuable gifts high on the shelf and never use them. And in this fashion, though, talk about learning and leveling up in your life. You were the leader in corporate settings. You were the one who was you were the subject matter, and you still are the subject matter expertise on many things. Now you come together with someone else who is also a subject matter expert, and you learn to collaborate and work together to bring something forth that's going to help a lot of people with regard to your last book. As far as I wonder, I love working with people. It's just an interesting experience, as to who walks, who does this, who takes the lead on this, kind of like very strong personality. And I know that you are wonderful and you want to see people shine, but you're also, 20 years in corporate career, and you have there's ways we show up here, right? There's things that we bring it well, right? So you have that whole, balancing of the whole picture. I go back to the point where, at the end of the day, when you came out with this final product, how did you feel? How was that? How long did it take you, first of all, and then how did you feel at the end?
Oh, it took us about 4 years or so to get the book written, because we would write, we would talk about different things, and then we would realize, oh, wait a minute. Okay, this should really go in the book, but coming from this angle, that's not what we wrote. Let's go back and look at it again.
Yeah.
So it was really a lot of collaboration and a lot of just being present in the conversation, going back to just the quote of just being in that now, being in that moment, and recognizing what is going to be that way to be of service. And one of the biggest things we were hoping for was that, when you start out in any field, you're learning a lot of the technical, whatever that technical is for that space. But then a leadership position requires a different skill set. It leverages what you had, and it requires other skill sets that may or may not have been taught. It wasn't necessarily something that you can go and just sit in one class and say, okay, I've done it, I'm good now. That's not how that really works. And so this book was intended to be a roadmap, a bridge, kind of like a mentor in your back pocket. And because of all of those things, we were just really so elated and joyful when the book actually came to do an unboxing. I actually was able to coordinate it enough with my husband to go, would you please record this? Because I really would like to see what it looks like on the other side at this moment, because I've not ever seen myself open books. So it was just
that's coolest. So awesome. That's awesome. I'm so glad you captured that too, that momentous moment. I think, first of all, thank God for books, because, they certainly do a lot of things and offer places to go to get a lot of sound information to educate ourselves. Certainly is one thing that they do. And also seeing a different perspective, understanding with an open mind that there are so many different perspectives out there, that ours is not the only one, that how we live is not the only way, that, our experience of the world is not the only thing, that, other people have different stories to tell, and different life histories, and your experience, certainly with the intention to help other people, can go a long way. And I will say that, with manifesting, going back to the whole point of this show, a lot of people are like, what is manifesting? What is that? And I want to ask you, because it's coming up for me, is for you, how do you see manifesting this life that you have right now, and where do you see yourself taking it in the next years ahead, months ahead, how that will unfold? What is your vision for yourself?
Well, I definitely am a big believer in the power of prayer. So I spend a lot of time in the morning in prayer and in the evening, and honestly, whenever it needs to happen during the day too. But I just really want to have that space to kind of go, okay, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? God, where do you want me to go? How do you want me to be of service? How can I be of service? And So with that, does that mean I get it right every single time? No, I mean, that's the whole thing. We won't, but we can learn from each time and then say, okay, now how do I improve upon it? And where I see that going is, gosh, well, first off, I am working on a course right now for being a podcast guest.
Love
It's called
it. Yes.
Shine as a podcast guest. I guess more shining and lights are happening through
Bring
that,
that
but
shine. Bring
but
more shine. Yes.
right, but it's really about so that you feel comfortable as a podcast guest, like how to show up, how to evaluate a show, how to know what to do, how to refine your pitch so that you get more opportunities to let your light shine. And you know, different speaking engagements coming up that I'm just really excited about. I just more each opportunity, to your point earlier about finding that joy when you feel that and it feels like, wow, that would be amazing to do. Even if you don't know, I can't tell you how many times I felt that feeling of that would be amazing. And then jumping and realizing, yep, we got to build the wings on the way down. And I've done that more times than I can count. And then there's sometimes I'm thinking, what was I thinking? I hope the mama eagle's gonna come and swoop me a little bit to give me a chance to kind of catch my breath of what I did to myself. But in the same breath, I'm glad I did it. I am so glad I did it. And
how long has it been since you left corporate America?
8 years.
8 years. So
yeah.
Looking back, was it a natural, effortless kind of flow, or were you the one who was like, please, Mama Eaglet, save me. I'm flailing. Or, what was that experience for you? Did you just have that leap of, it sounds because you're very prayer filled. So clearly I can't imagine it not being done intentionally, having the conversation with you. But like now looking back 8 years and where you are now and on this path, can you and go back to the whole point of the show, it's all about, loving what you're doing, loving how you show up, loving who you are, loving who you're becoming. That's everything that you've spoken to today for sure.
Yeah. The corporate career path I had was just really cool. I mean, without it, I would not have recognized that I had some gifts that were in some boxes. I didn't know that I had an ability to be a good project manager. And I learned those skills through corporate experiences. I didn't realize how much public speaking or being a coach or a guide or a mentor really was so ingrained in my being until opportunities presented themselves. And I did that throughout my corporate space. But then choosing to go start the business and starting with the picture books, quite honestly, it was a big leap of faith and a lot of discussion with my husband and knowing that it was the right thing to see where it would go. And I'm so glad I did. I can't tell you that when I first started, I thought a podcast would be great. I've hosted 3. I co-hosted one before, and then I have 2 currently that are available. So one of which is the TufFish Show. So, but I don't know that I would have known that before. The other one is At the Table with Jen. They're like little short, sweet, bite-sized little leadership things.
Yeah, I like that. So if you want some leadership hits, At the Table with Jen. If you want some more in-depth conversations around writing and the process and authors in general, it's the TufFish Show. And we already know why she's called the TufFish for sure, right? She's one tough fish. But literally, she shines. So one of the things that I love is that we get intentional about the space that we show up in. And I will say, first of all, when I had an opportunity to be on your show, I was like, I love talking to you for one. And at the other end, I said, I would love to know deeper, more about you. So my intention today was to shine a light on you, which you normally do for others. I wanted to do that for you because, I mean, we come across a lot of people in this business and certainly in the world and life and corporate, wherever you found yourself. And it's the ones that they leave that beautiful indelible mark, like the shoes in the sand, and you might not see the mark, but you will feel it in depth with regard in your soul. And that's who you are. You are prayerful, leaps of faith, the different ways you look at your life. So back to you and your intention for this evening. And that goes to, and I'll show that to the Magical Guides of Bliss and how it matches up. When I started the show, my intention was, playing with the book and seeing where things fell and getting synchronistic around it. And, even Carolyn Arnold is saying, I love how you are both speaking from the high level of manifesting where you both are, such a synergy. And it's true, because regardless how we call it, it's kind of like, putting it out there and trusting our own guide, our own internal guide, higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, to guide us through that light. Show us the light we can follow. So tell me what your intention was tonight, and then share with us the page you picked in the Magical Guide.
Well, my intention was to be of service to you and your listeners.
Thank
so
you.
I sincerely hope that was done. So the number that I picked was, I was torn. I must admit, there were a couple numbers that hit me.
Oh,
Yes. 285 spoke to me, and so did 14.
Oh, wow.
So can I read you both?
You can read both. Yes. Hit us with both.
Okay. So 285 was ask, believe, receive.
Oh, I love it.
And then 14 was imagine that you are a beam of light, a beam of light energy that shines each time you smile.
Well, there you go. Both of them.
I couldn't choose just one.
It makes so much sense. Both of them, ask, believe, and receive, is that leap of faith. I ask for the protection to take me where I need to go. I mean, maybe speak to that for you, like where you are now. 8 years ago, did you see this?
No. And that's okay. I'm glad that I didn't, because I don't know that you're supposed to know all of that. What I do know is that I remember having once the books were published and the idea of a school visit, I knew I wanted to do that. And so I get really excited about school visits. I know that when I realized that the developmental editing was something that brought joy in my heart, I wanted to see where that would go, and followed it. And I have gotten to work with some amazing writers. And that is the coolest thing, to be able to be a support, a cheerleader, someone who helps to strengthen their story, and to know that I got to be a part of that journey with them. That's an honor. And the podcast is just a blast.
I mean, and it is a blast to be on it with you. And so literally, I think that if you're having that much fun doing something that you like, or that just started off, then you have to follow that and go somewhere, because something good is going to happen. Like I always say, but that ask, believe, receive, and the whole idea about shining, from within out onto the world. I 8 years ago, we were both in different places. I would have never have known who you were. You wouldn't. But then 8 years later, here we are having this conversation. How magical is the world? Like, you would think about it. You sit back and think about it, and you're like, no, I know Jen. Jen knows Meg. We know Lee. We know Leslie. We know Carolyn. These are the people in my life. These are the people that I experience. How cool is that? That wonderful putting it out there and then following through. And it goes back to those different, boxes or gifts that you have, those that you just haven't opened up yet. And that when you do, and you start to use them, how cool is that? Tell me, what do you think? I mean, I'm getting kind of excited. And I know this is the month of sweet inspiration, because a lot of the questions I have around, what are the tools that you use to get you to where you are right now, may play a part in what you were just talking about, for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I am so glad our paths crossed. I'm so glad you said yes to be on my show, because it was so much fun. And thank you for having me here. And
love it.
Like those tools, to your point, it is going, for me, prayer is one. Journaling sometimes is part of that. Sometimes I just need to get it out of my head or voice it into my phone to help myself just kind of clear the clutter and say, okay, now it's out. Don't worry about it. You've put it aside. And if you need to go rework it, you can look at it at a later point. But those are things that I do to kind of help get into the right space.
Yeah.
And then there are times when, if you feel like that resistance is happening a little too much, if you need to take a pause, or if it's one of those where you're like, I'm not sure I can handle today. Well, guess what? You had so much grace for today. You don't need to worry about what tomorrow's is. You just needed for what was today. So if today you needed to rest a little bit more or pause a little bit more,
Yeah.
or with my writers, I will tell them, don't worry about the edits until later.
Yeah.
Or if you're at a writer's block, then stop a little bit and come back to it. We can talk about something else, and then it will come back through as it's supposed to. I think that all of those things, when you give yourself permission to follow the joy, to have the pauses and rest when you need, and remember that it's safe and really cool to follow that joy.
Yeah.
I think that that's really a gift.
I will say, everything that you said is amazing. And I know that maybe one thing that you didn't say is that you probably listen to music and are dancing a lot. I don't see how a 4-year-old does this and like dances to that and just stops dancing in their life. And I hope to God that is not the case with you, because I would bet on that it isn't. But okay, so here we are in September, September to remember. We all are looking for a bit of inspiration. And so, what can you give us tonight? I think maybe there are people out there who may be needing to pause, maybe tired, maybe they're overwhelmed. It's been a long year. It's been a long couple of years. I'm sure even your 8 years that you love corporate, I'm sure, the bumps in the road, especially of the last two, we've had to really be more contemplative and maybe more thoughtful. And going back to the whole theme of today, understanding with an open mind that things are happening. And I always try to say they're happening for you rather than against you. But maybe give us my favorite part of the show, because I get to take it away too, is that final bit of inspiration for maybe someone who was sitting at the beginning of the journey that maybe you were 8 years ago, wondering, can I do this? Is my life going to unfold in the joy with the purpose that I am becoming the one I want to see? Tell me a little bit. What is the final inspiration today?
I would say to listen to that little voice inside of you, that little voice that speaks very gently, very peacefully, that's not threatened by or sounds threatening. It's not menacing. It's gentle and it's peaceful and it wants the best for you. So when you can take some time and just listen to that little voice and let it be your guide, that in and of itself is a really big step and a big gift that you're giving to yourself, because it might sound counterintuitive. It might sound like you see everything going on around me and you hear that little voice say, yeah, be still. And you're like, but there's so much going on around me. Yep, be still. Or it might say, now is the time to do something. Okay, trust that. The next step will appear. It's like the quote, I think it's the quote by Martin Luther King, where you don't need to see the whole staircase, you just need to see the front step.
Yeah.
That same principle, because sometimes we think we do need to know that whole thing. I mean, from the project manager side of me, there was, you need to build out the team. You got to build out the plan. You have to be able to execute to the plan. But in the same breath, things are going to happen that are going to change that. The more agile you're able to be, to stay open.
Yeah.
And to trust that you have what it takes. You wouldn't be given it given to you if you couldn't.
Yeah.
Even the stuff that feels challenging, you can truly do that. And if you find a way to allow those things to help make you better and not bitter, that will help too, because that's to your point, Meg, about things happening for you. Even the things that feel frustrating, or why did that have to happen? Because of course I've had bumps like that in the last 8 years to shoot in all of life. Yeah. But in the same breath, the faster, the better able you're to say, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I let it make me better? And focus on that, even when you need to pause to get there, and recognize that every day needs to be this 100 stellar %. It can be what it needs to be. Give yourself grace.
I love it. And like Lee's loving better, not bitter. She's writing that down. It's true. I love it. Don't be bitter. Like, yes, Love it. I'm on the same page with you. I love what you just said. It is exactly what we need to hear tonight. And for sure, there's so much that you have to offer the world, so many gifts that you have opened that you're sharing with the world. And I'm super grateful. I would love to know where people can find you in this beautiful, wonderful technological vast array. And also, I don't know if you are in person, are you speaking anywhere soon? I don't know. You have your course class coming up with regard to how to become or how to show up as a wonderful podcast guest. Tell us a little bit more. Where can we find you if we wanted to contact you?
Website is a great place to start. It's a nice little hub of everything. So jennifermilius.com. And
JenniferMilius.com.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
One L, everybody. Yeah.
And I hang out quite a bit in Instagram. So It's author Jennifer Milius, and definitely, shoot me a DM or send me an email. That's totally cool. As for engagements, I have a private speaking engagement coming up in a month, or actually less than a month, and book signing in November. That's local to Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And the course is going to be online. So yeah.
So the book signing, is it going to be in a bookstore or a location that people can come and
actually it's going to be a fall craft fair. So it's going to be it's the Princess Anne Fall Craft Fair. So they've had such a lovely event the last time I was there, which was pre-pandemic, and I was just really excited about coming back, and they welcomed me, so I can't wait.
So it's the Princess Anne Fall Craft Fair in
and it's
Beach.
Huge for the oh my gosh, the last time it had hundreds of really amazing crafters and vendors, small businesses. So it was perfect right around the holidays. That's all wonderful. That event detail is on my website.
Okay, wonderful. And to go check her out. She's lovely. Obviously, she's wonderful, and you get to meet her in person. You lucky people who are in Virginia Beach for sure. I want to remind everybody that TufFish is her podcast, and that's available on all the podcast locations. Go give her a review after you listen. It's a wonderful, wonderful show where amazing conversations happen. And get her book also. And like I said, go to all these wonderful book launch occasions that she's going to have. It's called It's a Verb, Right? And her other books are the Einstein and M.A.N.T.R.A.s series. And I always like to put my books up next to you. Certainly support Magical Guide to Bliss, Sparkle and Shine, and Butterfly Awakens as well. Support Jenn Milius if you have a book idea. She's a wonderful developmental editor. She's going to bring your book along and help you get past all those blocks and those imposter syndromes. And I would just love everyone to take away tonight what she said. Listen to that little tiny voice that tells you to just go do what you got to do when you got to do it. If you got to rest, listen to that as well. Thank you so much, Jenn, for this wonderful conversation this evening. I think that you're amazing. What your energy brings to the world, we need more of. So I say, lovely to hang with you. And if I ever get to cross paths in person, I will just give you a huge hug for sure.
Yes, please.
You're amazing. And I have really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. And remember, love is the foundational. From that, you can go to the highest heights of the world for sure. And just be in your joy and your purpose, and be that little girl dancing this little light of mine that, you know what, gotta let it shine. That's what Jenn's leaving us here today. Thank you, Leslie Rasmussen, for letting me have the opportunity to meet Jenn Milius, because she is quite a superstar, and so is Leslie. Remember, everybody, we're all here to be deliberate creators of our life. Dream big. Let us all together raise the vibrations in this world so that we can all live from a place of power and bliss. Let's love ourselves exactly where we are. Reach out and continue to spread that love. It's time to manifest the life of our dreams. Wishing you all bliss. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful evening, and good night, Jenn. Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate it. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing, Meg.
You're awesome. You're just awesome. Love her. Love her, everybody. Go check her out. TufFish Show. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.